Hello, hello. Anybody out there? All right. Yeah, so he's also written a book that we'll be talking more about later, but he's going to be sharing some of those insights with us today. And so here's Timber.
And as you know, I never know what I'm going to say until I say it. And today is perfect because I speak here so frequently, but I don't think ever in all the years I've ever done it on a second Sunday. And so you know how you share your principles? I've never been here for this one. And it perfectly ties into what I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to try to keep working it in. The book is called The Opposite of Namaste. And someone asked online, well, the opposite of namaste, not just a different hand gesture that just involves one finger? No. Namaste is translated in many ways, but it frequently means the divine within me, the God within me, sees, acknowledges, and honors the divine within you, which is really easy to do when you are surrounded by very kind, loving, patient, wonderful, generous, compassionate people. But what happens when you are in front of a jerk and someone's being really difficult or problematic or argumentative or hostile, and it's really difficult to namaste, you know? And I think those are the instances that we need not an actual word to say out loud, you know, to them, but to think within us, like, I get why you do what you do, because the ego in me sees the ego in you. I've been rude before. I've been a jerk before. I've been impatient. I've been loud. I've done all. I get you. The ego in me sees the ego in you, and it's not, again, anything. Don't try to come up with a word to actually say to them like, "I see you, buddy." No, it's really just internally, because the moment you do that, even that eliminates judgment. It eliminates this separation, this notion of a superiority complex, like, I'm better than you. Why are you behaving like this? Well, I know why you're behaving like this. I've done it too. And in fact, I probably still do it in ways I'm not aware of. And so it just kind of raises awareness of the whole of us. So the ego in me sees the ego in you, and the God in me loves the whole of you, ego and all. Does that make sense? And so, oh, it went away. Yeah, thank you. So, what I loved about that, the Spirit of God lives within each person. Therefore, all people are inherently good. And how do I segue into this? Before the pandemic, I traveled. I gave talks here in the area for the first 2 weeks of every month. It was Cambria, it was San Luis Obispo, it was here. And then the last 2 weeks of every month were always open for travel. And as soon as the pandemic happened, all travel stopped, all local events stopped, everything stopped. So we switched to many online, but one-on-one sessions with people, which I would have never thought to do. But I was reached out to by another platform saying, hey, do you think people would want to do this? And at first I thought, who would want to do that? And then I realized, well, that's not for me to decide. I offer it and see what comes up. And I've had many of them, hundreds of them. And at one point during one of the one-on-one conversations, I felt inclined to share a story that my teacher shared with me that I hadn't shared before, because I think it's a really silly story. But I shared it, and it fit perfectly to the conversation I was having. And I've shared it multiple times since, and I made a promise to myself that when I go on this book tour, when this book finally gets published, and it was last month, and I leave on this book tour literally today, right out of here, cars full of 1,000 books in the parking lot, and I'll be visiting 65 cities in 90 days. And I'm going to share this story with everyone. I don't think I've shared it with you before, but I'm going to do it again anyway. It's kind of like a stand-up comedy act where you test your material at the local club, and then you have your Netflix special. So the way that my teacher told me this story, he said that in India they have these bazaars. We know them more. The closest thing we can relate to it is an outdoor farmers market. So it's not a mall or a store. It's an outdoor, tables and booths set up on both sides, outside, red dirt, blue sky. India, it's loud, it's hot, it's muggy. I love this. This is awesome. I'll take this weather every day. And there's a lot of scents in the air because they're selling anything and everything from fruits and vegetables to fish to flowers to spices to colorful saris blowing in the wind. And it's just very lively, wonderful. You can imagine this market and how lively it is. It's alive. And they thought, wouldn't it be great if we have this celebratory parade that goes through the market? Have you guys ever heard this? Have I shared this with you guys before? You're saying yes. Everyone else is like, no. So good memory. You're the only one who listens. No. It's worthy of resharing, if anything, if I've shared it before. So there's a wonderful market, and they thought, wouldn't it be great if we had a celebratory parade that goes through the market? And it's India, so they thought, well, let's have elephants, and the elephants are covered in beautiful fabric and bells. Problem was, when the elephants were walking through the market, every time the elephant saw bananas or mangoes or papayas, they would reach for it and shove it in their mouth, and reach for it and shove it in there. And they're breaking things. They're knocking things over. What was supposed to be this beautiful celebration turned out to be complete chaos. And they thought, well, shoot, what do we do? How can we have the market and the parade and the elephants, but not the chaos? And they realized that if you give the elephant a stick of bamboo to bite down and chew on at the beginning of the parade, the elephant will walk through the entire market. He's not going to reach for the mangoes or the bananas because he can't. There's already something in his mouth. So the elephant will just walk through the market gracefully. If at any point the person walking next to the elephant notices the elephant is reaching for things, he doesn't demonize the elephant for being an elephant. He doesn't demonize the banana vendor for selling bananas and distracting the elephant. The moment he sees the elephant is reaching for the bananas, he just goes, oh, he must have dropped his bamboo stick. So he picks up the stick, gives it back to the elephant, and the elephant can walk gracefully through the rest of the market. That's how my teacher taught me what a mantra is. Most people think a mantra is a chant in some foreign exotic language that they repeat to themselves on the meditation cushion, burning incense first thing in the morning, going Nam Myoho Renge Kyo or Om Mani Padme Hum. And it is, but that's not what my teacher taught me. He said it's like a bamboo stick. It's a grounding thought that you keep so you can walk gracefully through life. And he told me, he's like, I can't give you a mantra. I can't tell you what it should be. I know that if you familiar with transcendental meditation, they often tell you, oh, if you pay us $7,000, we'll give you your own unique mantra, but you're not allowed to tell anyone what it is. That's not what he was talking about. So I can't give you a mantra, but I can. The point of having a grounding truth, of having a bamboo stick, is so that we are not so distracted by everything going around us. And that's where, okay, it's gone again, but that's where that second principle comes back in, about knowing that that God is within all of us. Because I can give you an example of when someone is torn by two opposing truths and they need that bamboo stick. So let's imagine a teenage girl who was raised to believe, as we do, that she is a child of God, that she is perfect, she's whole, she is complete, she's beautiful, and one day someone is going to find her irresistible. She knows this to be true. She's like, I'm a child of God. I'm complete. Someday someone's going to see that. And she knows that to be true, and she walks gracefully through life knowing, I'm a child of God, I am beautiful. Someday someone's going to find me irresistible. Until she gets on Instagram. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, I'm so fat, I'm so ugly, I have terrible skin, no one's ever gonna love me. because she's looking at fashion magazines, she's looking at pictures of models, she's doing all this, and all of a sudden that thought of I'm beautiful, I'm perfect, I'm whole goes out the window, and she is just, and I'm doing this because it's just like the elephant reaching for things, knocking things over. But all of those thoughts, all they are is an indication you dropped your grounding truth. You dropped your bamboo stick. You need that mantra. You dropped that grounding truth that you are a perfect, beautiful, whole child of God. And you started believing all this other stuff. Now, let's not demonize all the people on Instagram or all the fashion magazines, and let's not demonize her for being a teenage girl going through what all teenagers go through. But let's use each one of those instances as a reminder, like, hey, pick up your stick. Am I making sense at all? I know it's a very silly story, and yet I find that, I've talked like 500 public talks over the years across US, UK, Australia. I speak in prisons, churches, and I constantly talk about the importance of having core values and just really aligning ourselves with the person we want to be. But I like this simplified, if you would, version of a mantra of a bamboo stick. And it's not, again, something you just repeat to yourself in the morning or at night or once a year. You go back and go, well, what was my value again? It's something you literally keep in your back pocket, not just in the morning, not just all day long, because at any moment you need a reminder of your grounding truth, whatever that may be. Not just I'm beautiful, I'm a child of God, but perhaps everyone is a child of God. Everyone is beautiful. And whatever the word you come up with for the opposite of namaste, meaning I see them, they can't be a child of God. They're being so rude. They can't be that. It's like we are all hosts to both the God and the ego within. And it's not about destroying the ego within. It's about making peace with it. It's about acknowledging it, seeing it, and saying, I see you. I acknowledge you, and I'm going to listen to this other voice instead. And the ego just goes, fine. At least you acknowledged me. But, it's just, that becomes habitual. And it's this beautiful acknowledgement of the beauty in everyone. So rather than entering a room and trying to impress everyone in the room, you enter a room and try to find something impressive about everyone you meet. It's a subtle but big shift. Am I making sense? So, again, it's not something to say out loud. But I really like this concept because it's difficult, because first we have to acknowledge the ego within us. In order for me to say, the jerk in me sees the jerk in you, I need to acknowledge that I am sometimes a jerk. It's not easy to do because we tend to think of ourselves as superior, as better than. And even the notion of, well, I've been on the spiritual path for 20 years. It's like, so? It just wouldn't be a Timber Talk without a quote from Tyler Durden from Fight Club. So this whole notion of, I've been on this path for 20 years. I've lived in monasteries. I've seen priests who memorize sutras, who chant, but they treat everyone around them terribly, and people in robes giving the finger. And so there's a quote from Tyler who says, sticking feathers up your butt does not make you a chicken. And wearing a cross does not make you a Christian. And putting a Buddha statue in your garden does not make you a Buddhist. He didn't say all that, I added that. And so it's just, be that beautiful child of God, live in line with that bamboo stick, whatever it is, find it. Find your grounding truth. And it's easy to figure out when you drop it, because the moment you feel it, I think every fiber in your being feels like, this doesn't, if someone is upsetting you or something like that, I explained on the back of the book that all this talk about mindfulness, mindfulness doesn't make other people less irritating. It just makes you less irritable. That's the benefit of it. Other people will just be who they are. We just decide who we want to be in relation to everything and everyone else. So who are you going to be? I say we be that continually disappearing child of God. Thank you, guys.